Good morning, Cahirlock. At 11:30 today in Tralee, the Tralee Women's Resource Centre closed after 32 years. For the past 32 years, that centre has provided a tremendous service to women in Tralee and indeed from outside of Tralee and many areas out towards North and East Kerry. I'd like to first of all to pay tribute to the staff who worked there and give a lot of them voluntarily give of their time to the women of Tralee and the tremendous contribution it has made to women most in need down through the years. Absolutely tremendous. And I find it very difficult to comprehend and understand how, after all those years and the huge service that it has provided over, that it is now being closed as of today. A review was conducted by the board of the TWF and it sadly concluded that the organisation is no longer as relevant as it once was when it was founded 3 decades ago, 3 decades and 2 years ago. And I often wonder, how do you define relevant? Does it mean that it hasn't the same numbers coming through the door? Does it mean that people coming through the door have different problems than they had down over the last 32 years? Because the reality is, Minister, that in the last 12 months, 2,500 people used the Tralee Women's Resource Centre. 2,500. And I can't understand for the life of me how somebody with a stroke of a pen will decide that it is no longer relevant and that the work can be taken up by other bodies. In the review that was carried out over 6 weeks ago, maybe 10 weeks ago, it suggested in that review that when the centre moved from the centre of the town to its current address, Oireachtas, that it was probably the wrong move. Yet 2,500 people have been to that centre in the last 12 months. And again, as I said, the relevance of it and the importance of it is not lost on the women of Tralee and the surrounding areas. The value and the importance of it is embraced by the women of Tralee and the surrounding areas. And the people who work in the centre and who have contributed to maintaining that centre for women have to be highly commended for their tremendous work for what they have done. Minister, I don't know what answer you're going to give me here. I will hear it in a minute or so when you give that answer. But I just, for the life of me, can't understand how any section of government, the HSE or any other section of government, can justify this action. This is wrong, terribly wrong. And today in the protest, women came to voice their support for the centre and their anger at it closing down. And these were women that, some of them maybe who have been through the centre and got tremendous service there, and others who have been supportive of it and the work that it has given, the service that it has given to women in Tralee and in Kerry in general. So, Minister, I would like to know what this government is going to tell those women. What's going to tell the people who have worked and kept it open, and obviously the people who were using the centre, and to try and give us some reason of how you can try to justify what has happened. So I would appreciate your answer, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Garlic. I want to thank Deputy Martin Ferris for raising this very, very important issue, and of course I'm taking this on behalf of Minister Catherine Byrne. Can I say that, from my point of view, Tralee Women's Resource Centre is a drop-in centre funded by the HSE, by TUSLA and by the Department of Employment Affairs and Social Protection. It had a dedicated support worker for violence against women. The brief for the centre is to support and inform women of their entitlements, lobby and campaign on issues affecting women, while also establishing networks between the existing women groups in the area. The centre has made an important contribution to the provision of services for women in Tralee and the surrounding areas. It has also supported the development of groups which work on behalf of women. its services have included counselling in situation of crisis pregnancy, support for women affected by domestic and gender-based violence, and support for migrant and refugee women. I understand that the Tralee's Women Resource Centre has decided to cease its services. The board of the centre carried out a review of its operations and concluded that the organisation is no longer as relevant as it once was. So the board made that decision. Increased availability of a range of services provided by other organisations and increased demand and challenges has resulted in the decision to wind down the services of the Women's Resource Centre. The move from town centre to a new premises may also have been a factor in the fall in number of clients using the centre. So there's a second reason. I understand the centre is endeavouring to make alternative arrangements for users of the centre. The HSE has funded the centre to provide a confidential service to women in crisis involving support, information and listening. The HSE has advised the Department of Health that the decision to close the centre was a matter for the board of the centre, and the HSE fully supports their decision. The HSE is linking with the organisation in relation to alternative arrangements for users of the centre. It can be traumatic and emotional when a centre closes, especially one in existence for over 30 years. And of course, I take your point there, Deputy Ferris. However, it can be the right decision as well when taking account of all the circumstances. On behalf of the HSE and many users of the centre over years, I would like to pay tribute to the work carried out by the centre. In particular, Minister Byrne would like to acknowledge the contribution of the voluntary board of the directors of the centre and the staff employed there. But of course, I'll bring all your concerns back to Minister Byrne.
Prime Minister, a lot of your reply is part of the review that I have here in front of me. And I think it's very important to note the services that is provided, which included counselling in situations of crisis pregnancy, of which we spent a number of days here and weeks debating the bill on abortion and the situation there. Also support of women affected by domestic and gender-based violence, which in many areas is on the increase, and support for migrant and refugee women, of which we have a very sizable migrant and people seeking refugee status are in the town of Tralee. You said the board is at the centre carried out a review, and as a consequence of that, it has been has closed down as a result of that review. I dispute that. I think that to suggest for 1 minute that the board voluntarily decided to cease, I don't believe that's the case. I would like to know why the funding, what was it in relation to funding? It's not easy to get answers. Certainly I have questions into the Minister regarding the funding that was provided through the Tralee Women's Resource Centre, that amount of funding, and where that funding is now being allocated to or redirected to. And I think the very fact that I have been told that there are a group of concerned women who are willing to reconstitute the organisation with a view to reopening the centre as soon as possible, are prepared to do that. And obviously, it's, this decision is not just taken by, but let's say, in any review by the board. I'm quite certain that if a board is told that funding is going to dry up, that if that is the case, that is probably the reason behind it. And it's such a small amount of funding, and it's such a tremendous service, a service to the type of people that need crisis pregnancy, gender-based violence, domestic violence, migrants, refugee women, in a town that is growing over 20,000 people now in the town of Tralee, and when you have 2,500 people, and it says it's no longer relevant because not enough people are using it. I dispute that. 2,500 people have used the centre in the last 12 months. That is quite a significant amount of women that's gone through that centre. Many of them are victims of the issues that both you and I have referred to in your presentation here. So I would hope that, I want to know where that money is going, where it's being redirected to. Was that funding withdrawn? And is the amount of funding is that funding still available if a new Tralee Resource Centre sets up?
Thank you, Deputy.
I want to thank Deputy Ferris, again, Martin Ferris, for raising this very important issue, and I don't doubt for 1 minute his sincerity on it, and I do value the work. Like voluntary organisation, I know this myself, so I come into politics through the voluntary sector, and voluntary organisations do play a key role in the provision of health and social care services. And this includes, like yourself you mentioned, but also includes their elderly, care of people with disabilities and supports for homeless people and, as you said, domestic violence and migrants. So as a society, we do owe a debt of gratitude to those who work in the voluntary sector. In recognition of this role, the Minister for Health has established an independent review group to consider the strengths and weaknesses of this model of service provision and the issues that arise from the public services perspective. This group is to make recommendations, and this is where there's a light at the end of the tunnel, is to make recommendations on how the relationship between the state and voluntary organisations should evolve in future. And I know I see the figure there is the Tralee Women's Resource Centre received in the region of €600,000 since it opened in 2013. But the closure of the Tralee Women's Resource Centre highlights the relevance of this review. Minister Harris will consider the report of the independent group when it completes its deliberations. In the meantime, the Department of Health is committed to working with voluntary organisations to improving health and social care outcomes for the vulnerable in society. But of course, the genuine concerns you raise, I'll bring them back to Minister Byrne and Minister Harris and to see if there's any other way, if another group emerges on the scene, to develop those services. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister.